If you're familiar with game publisher HABA, then you probably have an idea of what to expect to find in their catalog, such as games in which you collect gems with fantasy characters like dragons and gnomes, or games with cute animals, often relying on memory, whether competitive or cooperative, or stacking games that may or may not involve a rhino in one form or another. What you rarely expect to find, in fact, one might say never expect to find, is a game that involves murder. But HABA has branched out into family games, and the key, Murder at the Oakdale Club, is one of a trilogy of titles from designer Thomas Singh that involve crime of one manner or another. One of the games is about sabotage, one is about theft, and this one is about murder. Yes, HABA is branching out. You are detectives and you are trying to solve cases by identifying the suspects, the three of which are pictured on the front of the box here, along with when they committed the crime, what they used to kill the person, where they committed that crime, and how they attempted to make their getaway. You know all of the pieces of information related to these crimes, but not exactly what gets paired with what. Let's show you how this works. Here are most of the components of the key Murder at the Oakdale Club. Dozens of evidence cards that are shared with your fellow players. Everyone gets their own briefcase that they fold up into a screen, and you will use this screen to record information about the cases, hiding that information from your fellow players, which seems bizarre given that you're detectives trying to solve a murder. You think you'd work together, but nope, that's not how this works. But it's a game, so it makes sense. I want to use this unfolded screen for the purposes of demonstration. The screen shows the times that the murders took place, 7:38 and 8:15, so in this order, 1, 2, 3. The three suspects, the three murder weapons, the three locations where the murders took place, and the three getaway vehicles associated with the crimes. Each player also gets an investigation file. And this file gives you more information about the suspects, their genders and ages, and a colorful DNA sequence. You have watches that apparently came off the victims. They stopped working at the time of the murders. I guess something heavy was dropped on them, not exactly sure. You have the getaway vehicles in more detail, showing the serial numbers on those vehicles, along with the number of clubs in the back, 1, 2, and 3. And you have a layout of the club with certain locations and the times to travel between those various locations, with the murder locations circled. Each player gets an erasable marker, and you are now set to begin one of the cases. There are 9 cases in the game that are all color coordinated. To play, you're going to choose one of the keys to show which case you're working on, put it in the center of the table. As a reminder, you're all working on the yellow case together. And you are going to begin by grabbing evidence cards, but only cards that have a yellow square on them. So this card has information related to 6 different cases, and the icons on it show it relates to the perpetrator and the getaway vehicle. There are 2 types of evidence cards. There is the witness card that has a value of 2, and it gives you some information that is helpful, but not necessarily definitive. You might know that this person did not do this at this time. So it lets you X out something on your card. Maybe you know that this guy did not do the crime at 7:30. It doesn't tell you which one he did, but it narrows things down a bit. Actually, let's turn this over and see what this is. So Amit Khan did not flee with 2 golf clubs in the trunk. I know it's Amit Khan because his name is listed here. He did not take the red getaway vehicle because that's the only one with 2 golf clubs. It is information, but I can't do anything with it right now because I don't know when he killed or when the red vehicle was used. Maybe I just keep this face up behind my screen because I know it still has information to be used later once I learn more evidence. So the 4 value gives more hard evidence, something specific, in this case related to the time of the murder and the location. Now I've turned this over. It actually shows a watch. We'll get that in focus there, as well as a location. And so you can look at the watch if you line up things here, it's got some symbols to help you line up with the possible different times. And you'll see that, well, you don't see the minute hand. Well, you see the minute hand directly go to here. So this must take place at 8:15, and it involves the palm tree. So the 8:15 murder took place at the palm tree. Let's go on our board. We're going to circle the palm tree at 8:15, X out the other two, X out the palm tree there. I've locked in one bit of information. I'm done with this card. It provides nothing else useful to me, so I'm just going to take it, put it face down, off on the side. That's it for my spoilers for the yellow case. I'm going to show more evidence, but it won't specifically be for the yellow case. But again, you're grabbing only the yellow cards and getting everything together. So maybe you'll have cards like this that show the first crime and the getaway vehicle. Well, you know that the green vehicle was not used at 7:30. Okay, or on the 2 and the location, the palm tree was not at 8 o'clock. Oh, well, in this case, this is a yellow card, and I already knew that. And you will have the doubling of evidence, or tripling or quadrupling, in different formats throughout these cards. So you want to pay attention to the icons, and ideally try not to duplicate things you already know. But in this case, I couldn't have known that I was going to find out something about the palm tree that I already knew. Okay. Or 3 in the murder weapon, poison was not used at 8:15. Again, I can just X that out, and I put the card aside. I'm done with it. I learn no other information. Other types of information or evidence available. You learn something about the perpetrator and the time and the location. So in this case, Lady Corina at 8:20 was at this gazebo. And so if I look at the gazebo at 8:20, well, it takes her 20 minutes to walk here, and it takes her 25 minutes to walk here, and it takes 45 minutes to get to the golf course. Oh, actually 35 minutes this way. She couldn't have killed anyone at 8:15 because she could not reach those locations at 8:15 and be at this gazebo by 8:20. So we can eliminate her as a suspect at 8:15. Although, of course, this is not a yellow card, so that is not accurate. But if it were, I could X her out. And then possibly save this because I'm not sure where she could reach at certain times, and you figure out the locations. You put that up there. Okay, what else do we have here? Other watches with locations. You have evidence of people and the murder weapon. So in this case, you're looking at a DNA sequence. You want to open your investigation file and look for an orange, gray, red, blue, yellow sequence. So gray, red, blue. So here, orange, gray, red, blue, yellow. So we know Lady Corina used the golf club. I don't know when, don't know where, don't know how she tried to get away, but I know she tried to use the golf club. And so right now, if this were yellow, it's not. If it were yellow, I'd keep it aside because I don't know where any of that goes, but I have information waiting for me once I can lock in either of those two things. Or if I know the golf club was not used here, then I know that she was not here at 8:15. Okay, another type of evidence. You've got other perpetrator and murder weapon. So a person with blonde hair killed with the poison. Well, okay, one of those two. But again, not information I can use at the moment. Or Lady Corina killed it. Okay, if this were yellow, then I would know I can X her out here. Between the murders with the trophy and the golf club, more than 30 minutes passed. So those two, in one way or another, took place at 7:30 and 8:15. So the poison was at 8. And possibly I have another card that I can use. Now that I know the poison's at 8, maybe I can figure out something else as well, depending on what I have. Such as, poison was not the murder weapon at the clubhouse. So the poison is here, then clubhouse is out, which means that the golf hole was the murder location at 8 o'clock. Clubhouse was here, and I have that all locked in. Now, once you have something locked in, again, I'm just making things up here. This is not necessarily correct. You look at the order of things. Clubhouse, golf hole, palm tree. And you go up to this chart, in this case, the location of the murder chart, and I see clubhouse, golf hole, palm tree is a 1. And so in the third slot, I'm going to write a 1 because that's what I think the order of everything is. So as you complete things, if we get Lady Corina here and Jason Bowe and I'm at Con, I'm going to go up here and I see, okay, lady, boy, man is a 6. Okay. And maybe I'm going to end up filling in the other things here, 6514. I'm going to lock in what I think the solution is based on this 4-digit code. When I do that, if I'm the first one to do so, I grab the key and put it in front of me and I am done. I do nothing else. I keep my evidence cards secret. They're all behind my screen. No one else is going to see them. And I just wait for everyone else to finish. You have the key in front of you and now you just sit and wait for everyone else to finish things. And if someone else finishes, they just sit as well. The rules have no guidelines for how long people can think and look at cards and do all this type of stuff, but you are trying to be as efficient as possible and ideally look at as few cards as possible, or at least cards with the smallest evidence total, because once everyone has written down their 4-digit number, you can compare them if you wish, you don't have to. If everyone has the same number, well, then you're all correct or incorrect together. If you have different numbers, well, at least one of you is wrong and possibly all of you are wrong. But to figure that out, you're going to use one other element from the box that I have not revealed yet. So, okay. You have a cardboard board with lots of 4-digit numbers on it. I'm not going to show you that too closely. You're going to look at the number that you have, the 4-digit number, and you're going to look on this card. And if you can't find it at all, then you are definitely wrong. You have not found the right solution for this case. If you do find the number, you put the key in the slot, you flip it over, and is the yellow key coming out of the yellow tag? If not, you're wrong. You have failed. You found the solution for something else. If, though, you put the yellow key in, comes out the other side, then great. That is the correct solution. You are a great detective, or at least a competent detective. We'll leave it at that. A competent detective. You have solved the case, but has anyone else solved the case as well? Did they write down that same number? If they have, then you compare the sum of the evidence that each of you has looked at. If you are the person who had the key, by writing down your number first, you get to discard one of your 2s. Or if you have only 4 evidence in your pile, then you discard a 4. And whoever has the lowest sum wins because you were more efficient in the evidence you looked at to solve that case. There you go. You're going to find a winner for that case based on the evidence if you are correct. So you've got 2 steps there. You need to be correct, and you ideally have a small number. The number that you are going to end up with is somewhat random because you will find duplicate evidence as you are digging through the piles. I have played 6 times on a review copy from HABA, both solitaire and with 3 and 4 players, and I have yet to have a case in which I did not duplicate evidence. I think I've had anywhere from 4 to 12 points of duplicate evidence. And there's not much you can do to avoid that other than looking at icons, but even there, you are going to need to look at the same icons. You cannot just look at one pairing of a perpetrator and murder weapon and know all 3 suspects and murder weapons, how they link together. That is not going to happen. So you need to look at things and you will likely get duplicate information one way or another, and you just have to live with it. That's just the nature of the game where it's going to come up, and ideally it doesn't hurt you too bad. At least that's what I've found out over 6 plays. Maybe I'm doing things wrong. I haven't figured out the solution yet, the ideal approach to how to solve things. I don't know if there is an ideal approach. With the solitaire game, you were just comparing your score versus a chart that tells you how terrible or how awesome you are. And that's it. I think I was adequate with how it came out. Score of 36. My two times I did this. The key is in theory solvable at least 9 times because there are 9 different cases. There's a different 4-digit number attached to each of the color keys. So you can play through 9 times. But in practice, you're probably going to be able to play through way more than 5 times, because 9 times, because you would have to remember the 4-digit number associated with each key in order for the case to be spoiled for you. So again, I didn't write down the actual number for the yellow case here because I was just looking at cards at random and I just wrote down digits at random. But I have played the yellow case and I do not remember what that 4-digit number is. The advantages of being in my early 50s, I guess, where such things just wash away from my mind very quickly. I could play it again and I'll have no advantage over other players other than perhaps my experience playing the game itself. And as long as you are in the same boat where you do not remember 4-digit numbers for every key that you've looked at, then you can do the same. You can put it aside, you'll play it in order, and honestly, I've forgotten all the colors that I've played just because I was organizing them in a certain way and then I've dumped all the keys out on the table. And my memory system is gone. Again, 50s. There you go. Welcome to it. There are 3 titles in the Key series, one about sabotage, one about theft, and one about murder. And the other 2 are easy level. This is medium. Now the difference with the easy is that there are only 3 things that you have to look at and a 3-digit number that corresponds to each of the cases. So you have the suspect and then 2 other things. In this case, you have the suspect and 3 other things, which gives you a 4-digit number. So there is more to consider, more to puzzle over. Perhaps this is ideal for older people or just people who want more of a challenge, trying to fit everything together. You can guess as much as you want if you don't want to figure everything out. Some of the clues are, again, mini puzzles or somewhat deceptive, often dealing with the getaway vehicle. There'll be some puzzle about the serial number on the cab, such as the digits on this vehicle cannot be a multiple of 16. Or sorry, if you multiply 2 digits on this vehicle, you will not get 16. And you're like, okay, so that's a strange piece of evidence to find. I don't know who gave a clue in that way, other than Jeff Engelstein, I will say. But that is a piece of evidence you can see. Or if you add up all the numbers, then it will be higher than this. Okay, that's very straightforward. But there's little puzzles in there. And you also have puzzles related to the person being at a certain place at a certain time. Those can be very tricky because often you will, in our experience, you will draw incorrect conclusions based on what you see. You'll be like, oh, if this person was here at 8:20, well, then they were probably they couldn't have been the murderer here at 8:15, but here they could be the murderer at 8. So, okay, we'll know they're in here at 8. But actually, they could be anywhere at 7:30, and you just forgot to consider those possibilities. So you got to try to keep that in mind for where someone can be at which times and not necessarily rule anything out, because then you will make mistakes and be a bad detective. Sometimes you will discover those mistakes when you look at a later card and you realize you have crossed out something that should not be crossed out. Maybe you will find that out. We've had, I think, all the cases with more than one player where someone was wrong. They just did not conclude correctly. You're trying to jump to conclusions or just put things together and you make a bad mistake. You don't figure things out. That's just how it works sometimes, but yeah, that's just how it works sometimes. That's not good. And you get to see it in here in a very abstract way with the evidence provided to you. Now, one interesting point I'll just mention is that designer Thomas Singh is best known for The Crew, a cooperative trick-taking game that came out at the end of 2019 and blew everyone away. It was a fascinating system. Engaged a lot of people who did not expect anything along those lines. He had a few releases earlier, but again, nothing that caught people's attention like The Crew. Now, there was a sequel to The Crew that came out, and that's kind of expected because it was successful. Let's have more of that. But then The Key is a completely different system, not at all similar to The Crew. It's amazing to think how different these two things are, and yet they're from the same designer. So it's fascinating to see the variety just in these two titles, and very curious to see what he comes out with in the future. I am sure there will be more titles of The Key if it's a success, especially since there are no difficult boxes left. boxes out yet. So those will come, assuming that the first 3 are successful. There will be more, just as there is more of the crew. Anything that's successful, you're going to have more of it because people like to make money. I can't fault them for that. There you go. An overview of the key system. You'll know how any of the 3 works. They have different level of difficulty, and you can choose whatever you think is appropriate for you. And ideally, solve that crime. Don't make mistakes. That's not good. No one wants that.